Okay, welcome back to another Shadows and Ink podcast. And today our guest is Nikki Nelson-Hicks, and we're talking folklore and superstition. So I'm going to let her introduce herself now, so take it away.
Hi, I'm Nikki Nelson-Hicks. I write a lot of weird stuff, horror, steampunk, history, whatever really floats my boat. I have a collection out right now that's in the editorial hell right now, but I'm looking forward to having that probably released sometime in 2025 called, it's a collection of horror shorts called Politics of Children and Other Stories of Revenge.
Well, that's a good title. Okay, so tell us about some of the books and stories where you've incorporated superstitions and folklore.
Okay, so as I was thinking about this, and I think the the stories that I've incorporated most folklore has probably been the Jake Ishton series. I had a whole series, a pulp series that had a lot of horror elements, and it's set in 1930s New Orleans. So you have a load of folklore to play with, and it's probably where I have the most of it. I also played with the Jinn in one of my short stories called "With the Cat Dragged In." That's also going to be, it was published in Razor Blades, but I'm also going to be putting that in my collection of Politics of Children. And I like to play with the idea of, different legends and stuff. Like, for instance, I play with the idea of golems in my story, A Beautiful Thing. I play with the idea of trolls in my story, Problem at Gruff Springs. And I also like to play with cryptids, which is in a way its own little idea of folklore in my story, Rumble, which dealt with Mongolian death worms and underground cannibalistic troll-looking creatures. I can't pronounce. I forgot. Can't pronounce the name of it. But it's an actual legendary monster that's in Mongolian myth, and it's called the Eaters of the Rocks. And it's these underground cannibalistic trolls that come out at night and will attack you and eat you if they find you on the desert at night. Which, if you notice, a lot of folklore is basically about things in the night that come out and eat you if you're in places you should not be.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And I totally understand not pronouncing names. I'm currently writing a Norse mythology retelling,
Oh,
and yeah, don't ever ask me to pronounce the Norse names. I'm just saying.
it's so hard. Okay, yeah.
I'm really going to have a trouble if I ever do a reading of that book. I'm really going to have a problem
You'll
finding a
have
passage.
phonetics on the side, but somebody will still, excuse me, but you'll always have that guy. But anyway.
Yeah, there's one story, it's about the Midgard serpent, or
Hmm.
my version of it. So yeah, I'm probably going to have to avoid that, although it is written in first person, so his name's not in it a lot. But yeah.
I can never remember the name of the little squirrel that goes up and down the tree.
Oh,
I know it's
yeah,
Rita's. I don't know. I can't.
yeah, it starts with R. That's all I.
That's all I know. It
Yeah,
sounds like it starts with R, and the word sounds like skitty skitty skitty. That's what it sounded. It sounds like
yeah.
a
He
like.
he he's in my retelling too.
I love him. He's one of my favorite. I love him because I like squirrels. So, but
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. He and Loki don't like each other.
Well,
That's just
no. Well, no one likes Loki. He's a
really
terrible.
Loki's the hero in my book.
Loki's an interesting character, but yeah, the gods are like, why is this guy here? So, it's like,
Yeah.
well, at least in the tellings, the Norse tellings that I know of, he's just always the guy who causes the trouble. Why are you here? So yeah.
Yeah, well, that's the whole premise in my book. The whole premise in my book is that Loki's actually the good guy, and all that stuff that's been written about him is just propaganda.
Ooh, nice. I like that. I like that.
Yeah.
Cool, 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 cool. Okay.
Okay, so folklore and horror are a good mix. So what about melding those two things appeals to you?
For me, I think it all goes back to my childhood. Those were all the core stories that we were taught. I mean, again, we're dealing with a lot of don't go outside in the dark because you'll get eaten. But I grew up in Tennessee, and as a child, we were haunted by the Bell Witch. Are you familiar with the Bell Witch?
Yeah.
The Bell Witch is pretty everywhere now because they did books and movies. But when I was a child, uh, you were really scared of the Bell Witch. You did not say her name. I still can't say her name 3 times in front of a mirror. Um, the Bell Witch was simply a part of my childhood. They even did a play where they took us. I was 9 years old. They took us to the Nashville Children's Theater, a play of the Bell Witch. It was just that kind of stuff was seeped into my childhood as a kid. So anyway, they kind of, for me, I like the folk tales and that kind of weird stuff because it just kind of like gets inside your head and kind of tickles your amygdala, and it makes things fun. A little danger, but safe danger, but still dangerous.
Yeah, so is that where your interest in folklore stemmed from, your childhood, or did
Hmm.
you get kind of leave it behind and then get back into it in adulthood?
No, I've always been into this weird stuff. I've always, when I lived in Budapest, would ask people about ghosts, hauntings. We live in these houses that are hundreds of years old. We live in houses that Nazis used to live in. And what's going on down there? And I asked people, and they would tell me their ghost stories. People often will tell you ghost stories. And in Budapest, of course, you've got the vampire thing. And I would go and hunt out vampire stuff, like where Elizabeth Bathory lived and where her family had power. Then when I lived in Oman, I learned more stories about the jinn, because the idea of the jinn was where we see ghosts or poltergeists, is for them it's the jinn. There was actually a house nearby that was boarded up because the neighborhood believed that's where a jinn lived. And unlike in America, where if there's a monster in the house, we go and attack the monster. No, 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 no. They just board it up. You don't go there. That's where a jinn is. You don't mess with that house. That's where a jinn lives. So that was cool for me to find people who told me more stories about jinn, about stories of their own little folk tales. I also used to go to the souk. It was kind of, when I lived in Oman, it was kind of my hobby to go to the souk and look for remnants of their pagan past. I found like czar rings, which are used in exorcism rituals to get rid of jinn. I found somps, which are silver medallions that you give to girls before they hit puberty. It's supposed to help them against the demons as they go in to become a woman. Fascinating, but you can find them, but you have to go digging, but they're there. I have a collection somewhere. But yeah, that for me was fun. I've always been into this stuff. I was that kid. So yeah.
Yeah, I can relate to that because, growing up in Nova Scotia, you really can't swing a cat without hitting a ghost story.
No, yes.
They're
Oh,
everywhere. So, yeah, I think that's kind of probably where my fascination came from as well.
yeah.
So, when you're writing folklore into the stories, how closely do you stick to the original tale, and do you play with it, or does it
Oh,
depend on the story?
no, no, I play with it. It also depends on the story. Like, for instance, with my golem, I did a lot of research into the golem history and the lore, but I played with it as well because, I play with it. I make the whatever the thing is a part of the story and whatever the story needs. Like in the Jake Ishinheji story, I use a Boo Daddy. Now, in Boo Daddy lore, Boo Daddies are actually like boogeymen. They come after you, and they're bad. They're bad. But I used my Boo Daddy. I turned him into almost like a protective talisman that Jake could conjure up in times of need. So for me, I play with it because it's my story and I'm God, so I can do whatever I want. I like to do as much research as I can. I don't want to, of course, do anything that's going to insult or culturally appropriate anything for anybody, but I will twist things and turn things as I need for them to be in a story. So, yeah, I play with it.
Okay, so what kind of superstitions have you used in your writing? Because superstitions are part of folklore, but they're still a separate thing. So,
Hmm.
how have you used them in your writing?
That's hard because I've been thinking about that question. Superstitions, I don't know if I've really used a whole lot of superstitions, not even the Jake Ishinheji stuff, because I used a lot of course, voodoo and a lot of witchcraft, that kind of stuff, golems and monsters. But I don't really think I've played with an actual like superstition. Maybe in like with Cat Drug In, I have a character who is basically she's kind of like a kitchen witch, a hedge witch, and she does a lot of curses. So that could be the superstition of making a hex jar, which is very big in just hedge witchery or just folk witchery, of getting a jar and putting certain herbs and whatnot and certain sigils around the jar, and you can use that to hearse people. That could be a kind of superstition, maybe. When I use a lot of my witchery, could be kind of superstitions. But other than that, no. I've been trying. I don't really know. I'm looking at my books. No, I don't. I don't know. I don't think I do.
Interesting. So, are there any aspects or tropes you think that writers overuse when they include folklore in their stories?
Sometimes I think the whole idea of they use witches a lot, and they either use witches to be really, really uber sexy, or use witches just to be the ugly old hag on top of the hill. That kind of bothers me a little bit, especially when they try to make witches like so super. You have to have this, this, and this to do a spell, and that's no, I have to tell you this, but you can use whatever you want to use to do a spell. So that for me, when they keep too on the nose, use witches, vampires, of course, using vampires as either super sexy or monsters. I prefer the monsters vampire myself, because I'm just kind of tired of super sexy or Byronic vampires that are just loathing their eternal sexy life. Well, then kill yourself, okay? You're not hurting anybody. Just then kill yourself. I hate that. What else? Because I've been thinking about that one too. That really bothers me a lot. Probably those things of when they make witches, like in Supernatural, they always had witches be just uber evil and yucky. Like a lot of body horror when it to the witches. Even there's a line that Dean says is, "Why are witches so nasty?" I have to wonder about that too. So that always bothers me when they make witches like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I see you can do it like for some stories or whatever, but you really should be a little more open-ended about witches being more three-dimensional.
Three-dimensional, not either super good or super evil. They're
Yeah.
pretty much in the middle. So I kind of feel like Baba Yaga. She's a witch that, quite frankly, can kill you or help you. Depends how she's feeling that day. So that's why I kind of like her.
Yeah, I when I wrote my Baba Yaga story, I made her very sympathetic. She did something that perhaps was not so nice. I think you kind of you'll fall on one side or the other when you read that story.
Yeah, well, especially with her. Actually, you fall on one side or the other with her. I've actually got three. They're not really witches. They're the three sisters in the story that I'm working on right now. That I'm still in the early stages of. But yeah, we've got almost the maiden mother crone aspect of them, because we've got one who, quite frankly, is just, you do not want to mess with her. She would rather eat you and hurt you than help you. And you've got a Electa, who's like almost the mother, who wants to help, but also don't mess with me too much. And then the middle one, the maiden, who just kind of comes and goes as she wishes. So yeah, I see what you mean. I play with that too with my witches. But like I said, that story is still we're in the early days of that story. I'm still doing a lot of digging and world building with that one. That's my next story after I get Politics of Children done. Crown of Feathers, which is the working title, is going to be my next thing that's going to be coming out sometime, whenever I get it done.
Okay, so a lot of folklore also revolves around seasons, like winter and fall. You've got a lot of things set in the fall. You've got a lot of things with the winter crone, like you were talking about. So have you ever played with seasonal folklore?
Actually, yeah. Once I was challenged to write a solstice story for Christmas. So I wrote a story called Ode to the Holly King, where I set it up in a mythical place that I created called the Bogey Bar. The Bogey Bar is this place where all creatures of folktale and mystery and superstition can go to have a drink. It's a safe place. No one's going to bother you there. It's a safe place to have a drink. It's called the Bogey Bar. And in the story, it tells the story, of course, the Oak King and the Holly King, and how the Holly King kills the Oak King every year and to start the next season. And then, but so it's all about that. It's about the killing of the Holly King, and the bartender asking him, why do you do this? Every year, you and him come here. You kill him, he kills you. Why do you do this? And then the Oak King, the Holly King, is like, how can I explain to this person, to this thing, to this creature, what love is about? Because they're doing it for the love of Gaia, of the earth. Because whenever they kill the other, they get the possession of Gaia. And how do I explain to this person, how do I explain to them about love? The love I have for this woman, and how I will die for her every season, and that I will kill for her in every season. And so it ends with him just saying, "'Tis the season, my friend, 'tis the season." But I really like that story. I haven't ever published it. I just wrote it as a challenge. But it's one of my favorite little stories that I have in my trunk of stories. But other than that, I've never really played with seasons, solstices and whatnot. Although I did once call out a person who wrote a book with witches and stuff, and she screwed up the solstices. She had a summer ritual happening in the fall and vice versa. And I called her up and said, hey, probably nobody in the world's going to catch this but some jerk like me. But that's backwards. And she said, oh my God, yeah, we caught that. We fixed that. Where did you read it? I got your book at the library. Obviously, the library versions are still messed up. You may want to talk to your publisher. So she was really cool. And then she met me at Southern Festival of Books. She came to my booth and we actually got to talk. And she's really, really nice. But she does a lot of research. She's in before she does her story. So she was very upset that she screwed up the solstices. But, yeah.
Yeah. If you're meticulous on your research, you do get upset when you screw things up.
That's something else. When I do a lot of research, I try not to get too bogged down because I'll get lost in the weeds. So much information out there. I got to remember, only have enough that you need for the story. Nobody needs all of that. You're going to bog yourself down and constipate yourself and not get anything done. Because research is fun. I love learning new stuff. And I will forget, oh yeah, I'm doing this for like a reason. I can't go down the rabbit hole and get stuck down there.
Yeah. Sometimes you have to go down the rabbit hole, though.
Oh, it's so much fun. It's just so much fun. And you can find new things and new aspects you could probably pull into that story. So, yeah.
Okay, so what are some of the most unusual folklore tales that you came across when doing the research?
Well, the thing that I found that was the most, not something unusual, but for me, was how all folk tales are kind of connected. Well, really, quite frankly, people are people are people. And all the world's folklore really is connected because we're all just humans trying to deal with the same fears. That's really what folklore and stories and, well, religion is based on. Fear. And if we can find a way to deal with it, we find it through stories. The most interesting I have found, of course, is playing with the jinn. Because, we think of genies. We don't think that deeply into them. But no, in the Muslim faith, they are extremely important. They are part of the Quran. I have several books from the Muslim and Islamic aspect or viewpoint on jinn. And you don't mess with the jinn. Like, we talk about ghosts and blah, blah, blah. We don't think too much about it. No. Jinn are very, very revered and feared in the Islamic world. And that to me was very refreshing and kind of cool that you guys just don't, this is real to you. And I had to really kind of take that a cool little aspect and look at that in a whole different way instead of just going, Bigfoot. I mean, Bigfoot's Bigfoot. They're fun. I have been to a Bigfoot convention, and I will tell you, the people who believe in Bigfoot are they rabid. There's 3 camps in the Bigfoot thing. You've got the people who believe he's a missing hominid, the people who believe he is some sort of missing hominid, the people who believe he's like a strange ape kind of creature, and the people who believe he's a multi-dimensional shape-shifting shaman. And these 3 people hate each other. These 3 camps. And I was in a convention with 2,000 true believers watching these people just go at each other's throats over Bigfoot. I'm sitting in the back taking notes like, wow, this is the hill you're going to die on. Bigfoot. So, okay, whatever. All right. But that to me is, everyone's got to have something.
Yeah. So do you have a favorite folklore tale?
The very, very, what is my favorite? Okay, my very favorite folklore tale is, tale as in book or tale as in what you do with my kid. My very favorite thing, and it's not really a folklore thing, it's really just it's all in the Isle of Man, is Jeff the Talking Mongoose. I love Jeff the Talking Mongoose. I love the idea of Jeff the Talking Mongoose. And in the Isle of Man, Jeff the Talking Mongoose is quite a serious subject. It's like if you go to Ireland, the Shay, the Fairy, the Fae, that's not something to play with. And Jeff the Talking Mongoose is a little serious topic in the Isle of Man. And I love the idea of a talking mongoose. That to me is fabulous. But if you're talking about books, dealing with some of my favorite books that are out right now, dealing with folklore and stuff, so I pulled them out, so I want to make sure I got them. There's Never Whistle at Night, which is new. This is primarily indigenous folklore, or stories written about indigenous folklore. It's really, really good. Devil's Creek, done by Todd Kiesling, isn't so much, well, yes, he goes into a lot of Kentucky folklore, because Kentucky, he has an entire world built up in the Kentucky folklore bit. What Kind of Mother, Clay's book. This is really, really good. This deals with South Carolina and a lot of the different folklore and how he weaves that into this horror, almost a Freudian novel. But quite frankly, if you really, really, really want to get into folklore and understand the weirdness and how it really shapes humanity, Passport to Magnolia by Jacques Vallée. Yeah. It kind of gets into the UFO stuff, but it's fascinating. The way, because he's basically a philosopher, and he gets into how we have incorporated all the folklore from all the times and all the bits and how it wounds up into this Freudian idea, or actually Jungian idea of UFOs. It's very interesting, very good chance. It's thick. It's very takes time to read it because it's very academic, but it's a really good read. It's really fun.
Okay, so what different cultures have you explored in your stories, and how do you stay respectful to the original culture?
Because that's something else. Dealing with like the Jagishinheji stuff, I did a lot with the Cajun culture, voodoo, and I tried to, and Romani, because he's Romani. I tried to be very, very, what's the word I'm looking for, kind. Especially dealing with the Romani. I know that the word gypsy is not a word they like. So when he uses that word, he's using it because he's angry. So yes, and as for a lot of the voodoo stuff, the stuff I'm using is utterly made up. Because I have a couple of friends who do practice the Vodun craft, and I don't want to upset them, so I made this completely up. None of this is any way attached to voodoo. I try to be, because I don't want to. I don't want to, one, appropriate, or two, hurt anybody, make fun of anyone else's culture. I try to stay as respectful as possible, and still keep true to the story, which is where the real craft and it really gets really challenging. But yeah, I try. I never want to make fun of anybody's culture.
Okay, so why do you think folk horror resonates with readers? Do you think it lends a natural dark ambiance to the genre?
I think it's because of this innate fear we have of others, the other, and the bad place. And again, this is back when you're kids and you're told, it starts when you're a child, and not to go into the dark because there's things out in the dark. All folk tales start off with the whole don't go, cautionary tales, the monster in the dark or whatever. I think it does it. I think it just gets down into our souls, and it's just there from childhood. And it's that little thing when you go outside in the dark and there's nothing out there, but still sometimes the hairs in the back of your neck start prickling and you realize, nope, I'm not going out there, not doing it. And it's just this innate fear. I think folk tales tickle the amygdala. I really do. I think that's what it is, and we like it. It's a great fun. It's a safe fear, a safe thrill. So that's what I think it is.
Okay, so what appeals to you as a reader about folk horror?
For me, it's the human element. It's watching people deal with the unnatural, dealing with the other, and they either fight it or they accept it. I'm very bourgeois. I like my heroes to win. I like my monsters to be failed and get over and die. But I like how it changes the hero, or the protagonist, whoever it is, who's suddenly just dumped into this weird world, how it changes them and their worldview. Like the story I'm working on right now, the woman, when she dies, she actually, in her death, after she dies, it's through her spirit time that she starts to realize how good her life was, and she has a lot of regrets, and it helps her to overcome the regrets via this really weird kind of supernatural angle. But for me, it's just that I like how that. Also, I do love good monsters. I do love a monster, so for me, it's a lot of fun. I do love a fun monster ghost story.
Yeah, a good monster ghost story is always fun.
Good monster ghost story.
So, what are some of your favorite folk horror books in fiction?
Oh, I just told you. I just showed you these guys.
Yeah.
My very, very favorite one, I have to say, was really, because I am a sucker for anthologies, because I feel like I'm getting more bang for my buck. There's so many great stories taken from so many different perspectives. So it just takes your mind on this huge, like, whirlwind of, like, whoa. And also you're seeing different, like, a lot of these deal with indigenous, like the different Native American tribes, and the different stories and the different monsters and like all the things that, to me, this was one of my favorite, Never Whistle at Night, and it just came out like last year, so it's really, really recent. This is one of my favorites right now.
Okay, so what's your next project? Do you have anything you want to share?
Like I said, I hopefully will have Politics of Children and Other Stories of Revenge ready, all wrapped up, and after I get all the editing, because right now it's in the editing phase, I'm hoping to have that out by 2025 or 2026, depends, I don't know. And right now I'm working on a story that's set in Appalachia, like 1905, and it's all about a little boy who loses his mom, and he tries to bring her back and comes to realize that death is sometimes better.
Okay.
So, death is sometimes better.
Okay, yeah, that's a definite tease.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm creating this little town called Styx, and all the people in Styx, it's in eastern Tennessee, are not exactly what you think they are. It's a little holler. I actually went to East Tennessee, to Norris, Tennessee, to do research, and it was great. I found this little working Appalachian 1900s kind of farm. They do it's a touristy thing, but it was really cool to see how they work and how they did things. So I'm taking notes for my town. It's what I want my town to be. But the people who live in this town aren't exactly what they seem to be, because it's just this weird little pocket of weird that is tucked away. So I'm also going to be dealing with other aspects of the future, or like the modern times kind of coming in, the coal mining industry in the early 1900s, how that completely tore apart Appalachia and a lot of the little haulers and towns. But those are little sub stories in the background. The main story is going to be Eli and his mom, and the thing from the dark. That is also, there's three stories in this one big story. But yeah, it's really about Eli coming to deal with grief and understanding that sometimes you have to let go.
Well, that sounds like something to look forward to.
It's going to be fun. I'm having a good time. Yeah.
Okay, so I think we'll wrap the interview up here, and I'd like to thank you for being a guest today. It was a pleasure chatting with you as always.
Yes, that was great fun. Thank you.
Okay, and that's it for this episode of Shadows and Ink. And join us in March for the next episode. So, bye for now.
Bye. Bye.